level of 0.2% towards the mobilization of resources for the African Union, and it is working very well. And therefore, on this note, I would also want to find out from Her Excellency Monique Nsazabaganwa what are actually the challenges that countries have in terms of mobilizing these resources, in terms of raising the resources as agreed in Johannesburg and in Kigali. If she can kindly share with us those challenges, that might also help us to take the step towards going to our countries to mobilize or to advocate for the mobilization of these resources. I thank you, Your Excellency.
Thank you, Honorable Bideri. Next, take the floor is Honorable Kamau Margaret, Professor from Kenya.
Thank you, Mr. President, for the opportunity. May I start by thanking the chairperson and the deputy chairperson of the African Union Commission for their good presentations. And I want to only make two brief comments. One, I want to agree with their proposal on the roles of the PAP. It is a bit surprising for those of us who arrived last year that we have not had a very strong working relationship between the AU Commission and the PAP, because this is what would have unlocked a lot of things. Some of the things we are talking about today should not have been here if there was a close relationship between the African Union Commission and the PAP, because the goal is one. I agree that one of the key roles of the Pan-African Parliament is that of monitoring and accountability, as explained by Deputy Chairperson Monique. Also, she mentioned that we must be the bridge between the AU and the partner states. That I also agree. But for us to be able to do that, we must be very clear about one thing, that parliaments, whether it's in PAP or in the national parliaments, work on transparency and accountability as the driver even of budgeting. How, therefore, do we persuade and advocate for better budgets if we are not able to discuss accountability and transparency of the AU here today? That they go back and give us proposals on how to implement this accountability and transparency, which must start from the budget process. Because we need to know where the money is going, because you cannot monitor something that you do not know. We can only monitor expenditure of African Union when we know and have approved that budget. It is this House that we must allow to scrutinize and to approve the budget. After all, what are we hiding? We are all in the same family, the AUC, the other arms of the African Union, and this Parliament. Let us be open to one another. Let's agree that the driver should be accountable. And if we agree, 1 minute. Yeah.
Yes, 1 minute.
Thank you, Chair. It is very, very important that we start from the budgeting, the spending, and for us to be to monitor anything that is going on. Otherwise, Mr. President, the Pan-Africanism cannot be dying when we are here. It should be, we should be the ones encouraging. But those who are encouraging are not very conscious of what else is going on in this, in the other arms. And I therefore would like to suggest that for us, we must have an active relationship between the Pan-African Parliament and the other arms. We even dared in our committee when I was giving the report that we want to have a huge conference of all the arms and we agree on how we are working. Because unless we streamline this House, we are not going to be able to do much. With those, I really thank them for the good speeches, but we must agree on how to implement. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor. Next, take the floor is Honorable Costa Adao Beto.
Muito obrigado, Sua Excelência, Senhor Presidente.
Thank you, Your Excellency.
Eu começo por saudar Sua Excelência, o Presidente da Comissão, Moussa Faki, também a doutora Monique, pelas intervenções feitas. Eu gostava de centrar a minha intervenção nas questões ligadas...
I'd like... Is it okay? Is it okay? Okay. Yes, you can repeat, please. First and foremost, I'd like to thank the Dr. Monique and also the chairperson of the Moussa Faki for your presentation. And I'd like to address my intervention related to the peace and security issues and development which are related, as well as also the economic issues. I'd like to start by call upon this Parliament to pronounce about the hard situation taking place in Mozambique today. Mozambique, after the electoral process, is facing a huge instability and a great risk. His Excellency Moussa Faki spoke appealing for the peace maintenance. As we are talking about this, and this is how they represent the voice of people, the sovereignty of the people, it is not good that the Pan-African Parliament be far from a conflict that is taking place nearby. And call upon all the intervention of all its members for not going to a mere conflict or for an instability, and also to put an end to the Violence Act, particularly or violation against the populations. I will conclude by a case which is a reality in our continent. Our young population, which is the majority in terms of the population in the continent, is a little bit frustrated with the institutions when the democratic rights are not ensured. And most of this, they go for the eradication position. So it's important that we cannot, we avoid this. And we need to intervene is to violate the human right, respect, the democratic respect for the human, and also for the act to have a transparent election, transparent and democratic elections, so that we avoid conflicts, so that we may make a good management of the resources and have a better continent. So this is my intervention. Please, let's help Mozambique to solve the violence in case that is facing today. Thank you very much.
Kenya.
Thank you, Mr. President. First and foremost, I want to thank the presenters, the chairman, Moussa Faki, and the deputy, Dr. Monique. That was a good presentation. I don't want to say much. I just want to support the colleagues who have talked here, because it's really worrying to hear that African Union, they are also going through challenges to raise funds for Africa. And I'm asking myself, if African Union is not able to raise funds, and here in Pan-African Parliament, we are always saying that we are not able to operate because we don't have funds, what are we going to do? And what I would like to tell you, the deputy, I think it's important to work with Pan-African Parliament because we are a member of Parliament. And the challenges you are talking about, like the member state not contributing, and also the resource mobilization, us as members of Parliament are the only members who can help you to do that. But now if you sideline us, because most of the time we are not even able to operate, like me, I'm in Eastern Caucasus, and we are not even able to go for a single mission because we don't have money. And saying that we are here to raise voice for Africans, I don't know what we are going to do. Now here, you've told us that you want us to advocate for the money. And I'm asking myself, how am I going to advocate for money? And yet, AU is not ready to be accountable. Because you see, I have heard from the chairman has said that now Pan-African Parliament has matured to be a full legislative and oversight house. Why can't you allow us to do that? Because now when we do that, we'll be able to go and talk to our country, talk to our members, our presidents, and they'll be able now to give money to the African Union. I can also thank you because you said you come with a program of resource mobilization. That is a brilliant idea. However, let's account for this money, monitoring and evaluation. The commissioners should be accountable. They should not dictate to us. We are members of parliament and we are elected, and that is why we are here. And we are ready to work with you and make sure that the Africa is moving to the next level. All the same, let's work together. I urge you to work closely with us because we are all here to present hope and we are here to represent hope and vision of Africa. Thank you very much and all the best. God bless.
Asante.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable President. We thank both speakers, His Excellency Faki and Dr. Monique, for telling us today what is actually happening at the African Union. And I think today, Honorable Speaker, it is very evident that as a union, we must look at ourselves from all angles. I will start with the decline in the Pan-Africanism in the continent here. But then the question is, what is the AU doing to correct that? Honorable Speaker, we are here speaking in a language that we do not own. And we've been talking about it for a long time. In fact, we've been segregated by Francophone, Anglophone, Arabophone, Lusophone, everything for something we do not own. How can we promote Pan-Africanism if the language that we speak in this parliament or at the level of the AU does not even belong to us? Do you expect Pan-Africanism to be promoted? No. We must develop our own language. And I've said this since 2017. Let's develop our own language and nurture that in our curriculum, in our schools. And in the next 10, 15 years, anywhere you go, Eswatini, Kenya, Gambia, Burundi, you speak the language, somebody's going to talk to you. Not this English language, not this French language, that doesn't do anything else but to divide this continent. We must think twice, and we must take a look at our strategies as a union. I am not surprised by the decline, because Africa is a very young population. But we must instill that Pan-Africanism in us. We must instill that mentality in us. And that's going to change our thinking. We must think Africa. And unless and until we do that, promote our culture, stop this language that divides us, we will not go anywhere. And I'm glad that the chairman actually has mentioned that. And personally, I'm not even surprised. We must do better for the African population. Honorable Speaker, to talk about the financial aspect of it, I mean, it's quite evident. We here as members of parliament, we are the one that approve budgets in our countries. We are the one that approve money that goes to the AU. We are the one that approve budgets to do all development in our own countries. But at the end of the year, financial year, the parliament is given an audit. How have you used that money? I've been here for 7 good years, Honorable Speaker, as a member of this parliament. I've never seen the AU audit. I've never seen that. Here. Even the budget of the African Union that we actually fund, we have not seen it. So how do you expect us as members of parliament to help promote participation by the African people to ensure that we contribute. Have a minute, please. Yes, how can you expect us as members of parliament to help promote the funding of the AU when money is given, we do not know when the money is spent. We do not know where is it. Where is it? I mean, we must be factual here, and we must be truthful. Tell us where the money is going, and we will go back to our own countries and tell them to pay for the AU, because the AU is meant for the African population. But if we do not know where the money is going, it'll be very difficult, doctor, to tell my country, the Gambia, to contribute. The last time I've checked with my Minister of Finance, he told me that Gambia is up to date until August, because I wanted to know exactly what's happening. But how about other countries? If you want them to pay, please bring an audited report of the AU in the parliament here, we will debate it. Bring the budget of the AU, we will debate it. We know exactly where the African money is going. Thank you very much.
I think this is the last name on the list.
Your Excellency, I
Honorable Barakat.
Your Excellency, I submitted my name.
I haven't seen it so far, but let me take note. That is Honorable Suleiman. Is it? Yes. All right. So Honorable Barakat, proceed.
Bonjour.
Good morning, Mr. President. Good morning, Mr. Vice President. I would like to thank the chairperson of the African Union Commission, His Excellency Moussa Faki, as well as Deputy Chairperson Dr. Monique. We know that the Pan-African Parliament does not have legislative powers, and we believe that the President and the Vice President who are present with us, I believe that the chairperson and the vice chairperson who are with us can advocate for the ratification of the Malabo Protocol on the Pan-African Parliament. The Pan-African Parliament tries to do its part in terms of advocacy. However, as the African Union Commission, what is being done in that regard, because this must be a collective effort. And while awaiting its legislative powers, the Pan-African Parliament must participate in the implementation of policies and programs on the continent. But over the past few years, we have seen that even the budget of the various organs of the African Union has not been transmitted to the Pan-African Parliament. I think the last element that I have in mind is recently in March, and the various departments of the African Union do not collaborate with the Pan-African Parliament committees or the relevant committees. So how do we then fix the situation so that the Pan-African Parliament can exercise its oversight function? And in addition, the Pan-African Parliament must be regularly informed on the reforms processes going on at the African Union. And one example of such reform is the financial independence of the African Union. I will stop there. Thank you.
I think the actual last is the Vice President, Honorable Jida.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll just seize this opportunity to congratulate Excellencies Moussa Faki Mahamat for detailing the expectations of the Pan-African Parliament with regards to funding, with regards to our role and the operation of the Pan-African Parliament, as well as the strategic plan that we have just submitted to the August members of the Pan-African Parliament. And so I think that Moussa Faki considered some strategic plan. And I also want to congratulate the Vice President, Dr. Monique, who also spoke to us on the funding of the Pan-African Parliament, and also detailed us, she went into details on that. And so people spoke a lot more about the funding and where the funding of the 2% comes from. What is it based on? People really were not edified on that. And so, Madam, could you please explain to us 2%? Just like in Chad, we have 2% tax on imports, for example. And so if all African countries deduct 2% tax on all imports, and we could use that to fund the African Union. And so they could take that on imports of everything that African business people bring in. And because we shouldn't just be losing when we do commercial transactions. And so when this money is collected, also it must be turned into the African Union for its operations. And so if there are certain heads of state who are not doing it, we should bring it to the Executive Council. And if there is a country that has not met its commitments or that has not committed to doing this, why not suspend those countries? That is where we need to suspend the 2%. If the 2% is not covering expenses, we would need, obviously, partners to increase the kind of liquidity that we require. In our Central African Economic Community, we have about 4% for community integration. And also we have 1%, which is community integration tax. So that is 5%. And so 2% of that can go to the African Union. And then at the level of our regional economic community, we can use it for our zone as well as a 0.5% eventually, which may be used to increase the allocation of the African Union. Thank you very much. Those are my inputs. And I think the African Union should consider that so that we impose, instead of relying on partners to impose things on us. I thank you, Mr. President.
Received another or two more requests to take the floor. I'm aware the deputy chairperson wants to also be excused very soon. So I request that those who take the floor now, having requested late, should also be very, very brief. Honorable Joly. Jacques Diarassi.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Honorable President, for giving me the floor. I'm going to be very brief, even if the question is a very important and existential one for our institution, the Parliament, as well as for the entirety of the political institutions of the African Union. I would like to thank His Excellency Honorable Faki, President of the Commission, as well as the Vice President in charge of Finance, the Vice Chair of Finance. Honorable President, while listening to Honorable Faki and Madam raising these issues, I would like to tell you that in our country, which had inscribed in its constitution in Article 215, the opportunity for our country in Article 217 to conclude treaties, to abandon part of its sovereignty to the African Union. This clause is strongly contested due to the results of the African Union following its transformation from the Organization of African Unity. The philosophy of the African Union, especially with regards to the youth, is really is in question. Why, Honorable President? Honorable President, Agenda 2063, I believe, just like you, that in 2063 that we would all be very far. We would have gone very far. Honorable President, in terms of the integration from 34 states down to 6 states, when we look at the first step, it has to be the regional economic communities. If we look at the only case of the Central African region, the assessment is very negative. It's a zone, a region rather, which where there is a lot of conflict, interstate conflict, and so on. There is a clear problem, in my opinion. The African Union needs to invite us for a reflection. Because if we look at the African Union, which is really based on the model of the European Union, shouldn't we start integration which is based on the economy and free movement of people? Because our initial vision, the vision of Monrovia, really, it was economic integration, because we are too much in theoretical discussions and debates rather than actions. Young Africans
DRC.
Honorable President, thank you for giving me the floor. I had already submitted my question and it got lost in the process. I would like to congratulate Honorable Ma'am and Honorable Musa Faki Mohammed for their presentation, and also for raising the issue of Pan-Africanism and the rise in conflicts in Africa. This situation, as you know, is linked, in my opinion, to the desire of states to just make voluntary contributions. Where the questions that we want to ask is, how do we transform that into obligations? And that should be really motivated by pressure from the African people. And if we, to achieve this, the Pan-African Parliament really played the role of a period, a catalyzer, and I believe that this shortfall in contribution, it really is linked to our policy positions and ideological positions, and also the will of our people. And so it is PAP, which is in contact with the people to to change the situation. So without a budget, how can PAP really be close to people? How can PAP promote African policies to the African people? Like some have just said here, we, the members of PAP, how are we going to tell people if we do not have the spaces to speak directly to them or to speak directly to the African Union Commission? And so we need to be conscious that those who fund us are those who dictate how we should operate. And so, like some said here today, Pan-Africanism means ending all wars. And who supports these wars? It is foreign countries, and we all know that. And all that we spend to fund wars should be spent rolling out the policies of the African Union. I would like to finally conclude by asking this question to Honorable Musa Faki Mohammed. How do we change this situation? Because we are those who represent the people, and so we should work together. And often you are not listening to us, and so we need to work in collaboration. And I invite the executive to increase dialogue with the Pan-African Parliament so that we really achieve the objectives that are honest and really Pan-African.
I think the last contribution from Honorable Vice President, Dr. Gayo.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Chairperson of African Union, Mr. Moussa Faki, and the Deputy Chairperson, Her Excellency Monique, Dr. Monique. Your Excellency, Dr. Monique, you asked the Pan-African Parliament to fund itself, to be self-sufficient. At the same time, you can witness that Pan-African Parliament raised around $3.5 million, and we came to your office, asked how to utilize that money. Of course, positively you tried to assist us. You went through all the documents and the rules of financial rules of African Union. Finally, you found that it's not possible to Pan-African Parliament to use that money. It should come to the same basket to African Union so that it can be maybe redistributed to organs of the African Union. In this way, how can Pan-African Parliament finance itself and can be self-sufficient, Your Excellency? Secondly, regarding the budget hearing, I know during Madam Zuma, when she was the chairperson of African Union Commission, since 2010, we were here, we debated on the budget of the Union, and we contributed. But later on, we heard the Legal Council of African Union advised that since Pan-African Parliament doesn't have legislative power, they cannot debate on the budget, which was very wrong, Your Excellency, very wrong. Our consultative role, our advisory role, allow us to debate on that budget of the Union. Given that the budget is a budget of the taxpayers needs transparency and accountability, it should come to the representatives of the people. So my question now, Your Excellency, can you advise your successors at least to come to Pan-African Parliament and table the budget to the Parliament to debate? I thank you, Your Excellency.
Thank you. I think we've come to the, what I may call the end.
Excellency, you are forgetting about me.
Oh, by the way, you are a latecomer, please do it under 3 minutes.
Yes, thank you, Your Excellency. My intervention will be very short, and I would like to thank the chairperson of AUC and his deputy. I want to speak on the decline of Pan-Africanism. Pan-Africanism will be simply declined because the leaders of the continent are not Pan-Africanist oriented. Most of the leaders who are heads of states, they have no commitment to Pan-Africanism. So it will be very difficult to sell the idea to the grassroots. Your Excellency, the diaspora, I want to ask the chairperson of AUC, the diaspora has been recognized as the 6th region of AU. Why is it that they are not still represented in this house? And it's high time we recognize these people as the members of this continent. One reason of the order, they were taken from us, which nobody appreciated. History will never forgive anybody who contributed to the taking of our own siblings who are elsewhere. Now they want to come home and be part of us. So they need to be reintegrated. And these are the people who can make this continent to move because they have the expertise, they have the resource, they have the energy. So Africa can be only for Africans, both at home and those in diaspora. So time has come to fulfill the prophecy made by Marcus Messiah Garvey, that we must return to our homeland, that is Africa. Africa for Africans. Thank you.
Thank you. We have how many minutes before 1? I was about quarter to, about 15, 14 minutes. The deputy chairperson will take about 10 minutes or more. I just want to say to the deputy chairperson, Your Excellency, this House in September made a proposal that since one of our functions as PAP is to promote deepened democracy on the continent and ensure a culture of democracy. I'm actually quoting from the rules on the protocol. Made a proposal that why don't we have the candidates for the AUC chairmanship of those who are aspiring to be chair of the African Commission to come to PAP at one of the sittings before the elections, to come and present here. We go live, and then the continent can see who these people are and of what capacity. Can you relay that to the chairperson and say, can we be given an opportunity to invite these people to PAP before February at any sitting so that, they speak to the continent and the citizens. Then the other is the issue of violations of the protocol by the AU or AUC itself. We are aware that in the case of PAP, when there is only some perception of violation of protocol, we hear very loud voices in Addis about PAP violating this and that. But for example, the union is violating Article 10 of the Pan-African Parliament, which says the Pan-African parliamentarians shall be paid an allowance to meet their expenses in the discharge of their duties. Since 2019, there's been no allowance paid to members of PAP. And some exercise was undertaken in Addis, where PAP was excluded in violation of Article 10 of the protocol establishing Pan-African Parliament. I know this has been mentioned, but I want to mention that it's actually Article 11(2) under functions and powers of the Pan-African Parliament. It says one of the functions and powers is to discuss the budget of PAP and the budget of the AU and make recommendations thereon prior to its approval by the Assembly. It's in the protocol. But the AU is ignoring this. And again, these are violations. So when the violations are done in Addis, they are inconsequential. Then the protocol says, under Article 11, again, functions and powers, it says PAP can request officials of the AU and other organs to attend its sessions, produce documents, or assist in the discharge of their duties. Currently, commissioners generally 80% or 90% of the requests, nobody comes to PAP. Maybe I'll stop here and I can now give you the opportunity to respond to issues raised during the debate. Thank you, Your Excellency.
Thank you, Your Excellency, and Your Excellencies, honorable members of PAP. Your Excellency, years included, we have 22 interventions. And some came back to similar topics, and you will just bear with me if maybe by addressing one member of parliament, I may also have addressed some of the issues raised by the others. But I have taken extensive notes of your comments, your questions, your wise observations, and actually even your demanding accountability, including your last question, Chair, Mr. President, on what if also the African Union Commission and other organs also violate the protocol on PAP. Let me, by the way, start by that and really confess that we are here on a learning curve. Like the chairperson mentioned, it has been so unfortunate that in my term, 4 years, part of it or majority part of it was in a situation where we couldn't really have this very vital and very fulfilling exchange with members of the PAP. But that is behind us. And we thank God that we have overcome, like Chairperson has mentioned, and we are moving forward. We will make sure, for sure, that we keep improving. That, by the way, includes also our notes, our handover notes to the incoming commission. I will come back to it later, but I wish we could have started indeed these engagements earlier because they are really full of substance, and also it's mandatory and statutory to do so. Let me also comment or try to answer to some of the concerns about finance and the state of contributions. Generally, several members have raised this. I will maybe elaborate more to tell you that member states' contributions, or the 55, have been really improved. We are seeing that 80% of contributions due are paid on time within the same fiscal year. Although some are not paid in January, we should actually have payment in January so that our budget running from January to December, we don't struggle in the first month of the year. But unfortunately, we find that sometimes member states rush to pay just the minimum that is required not to be sanctioned. We have a sanctions regime that apply to member states that delay to pay their contributions, and that is helping. But we mostly see, like you see in the detailed report, most payments are done towards summit of February and also summit media coordination of July, but most of the time not in full even, just what it needs to not get the country into sanctions. But we have seen that improvement over the last 5 years, from 68% to 88%. We have arrears today standing at $53 million. And to tell you how also this situation can be challenging, 85% of it is just from one country, which country is unfortunately under difficult times and also under sanctions in addition. Countries that have adopted the 0.2, we have actually 3 regions where we have experience: the Western Africa region, the Eastern Africa region, and the Central Africa region, but not all of the countries. Like in Western Africa, we have 9 countries that have adopted this decision. These are Nigeria, Cote d'Ivoire, Ghana, Sierra Leone, Gambia, Benin, Guinea, Mali, and Togo. In East, we have 4, Kenya, Rwanda, Sudan, and Djibouti. In Central, we have 4 again, Congo, Cameroon, Gabon, and Chad. In the Southern region, Northern region, we don't have experience of 0.2% levy being domesticated. And we really still need to push for the 38 total member states that have not yet domesticated. And I'll come back to this as to reasons as to why, because some members have also asked that question, why we are seeing a low uptake of this 0.2% levy. Challenges have been many. There is, to start with, a particular country that has put reservation from the day-go, but for the remaining others, challenges have been cited as follows. For a group of countries like the island countries, who depend on tourism, have tax regimes that are not even taxing imports and whatever, they have put a challenge that this is not even practical, because the 0.2% of what they will collect would be meaningful anyway. So maybe a reflection needed to see there be another alternative of a base to levy the 0.2%, which is not necessarily the eligible imports. That is one group country, including countries like Mauritius, for instance. Then we have had another category of countries that cite the challenges with the WTO, World Trade Organization, and the incompatibility of this instrument with the GATT provisions, which is a challenge, but also which is a challenge that can be overcome, because now we have a free trade area, FCFTA, and under an FCTA, having a regional trade agreement, you can always have a way of not being bound. But maybe some issues also concern some bilateral trade agreements that these countries might be having with other countries, which will invoke then the most favored nation clause and so on and so forth. So that has been another category of challenges, really that are related to WTO, World Trade Organization's rules. But we have also seen other categories of challenges, namely technical issues. Countries, some countries, like South Africa, for instance, they have cited that, this provision is not in line with their constitution, that they are not allowed to have such an instrument. So legal issues, technical complications or complexities have been also cited. We have seen also countries that, by the way, have domesticated, but in the implementation, they are even being challenged. And sometimes they even don't pay in full or in arrears, yet they have domesticated this instrument. Countries like, for instance, Chad and others, that sometimes it can be also technical issues of managing an escrow account, creating a linkage between the tax authorities and the central bank, where the money should be collected into an account, and then the remitting channels and so on and so forth. So there is a number of situations we have analyzed and studied, which indeed, as a strategy, we will go case by case, engaging particular authorities. There is also loss of, I would say, institutional memory, and we need really to bring this decision on the table of the current administrations in the countries, and involve also the regulators, especially the customs and the central banks, and the parliaments, so that really this engagement is deepened. We have been reaching out to regional economic communities like ECOWAS, like ECAS. We are planning to go there, ESC, to see how, to the point of one member who mentioned the ECAS. I'll get to that later, but let me mention it now while I'm on that 0.2% heavy issue. That actually, ECOWAS, they have a practice of levying. ECAS, they have a practice of levying. Why don't we just top on it? That is 0.2% that should accrue to the African Union. Technically, it's feasible. So we are really bringing this aggressively on the table. We are engaging with the ministers of finance as much as possible, but we need, and like one member you mentioned or more, the PAP is so critical and instrumental in really winning this battle of engagement, and also of seeing to the specific details of what it means for a particular jurisdiction to domesticate this and to implement it. And if there are any variants to it that can achieve the same purpose, then let also that be done. So that's for the 0.2% levy. That's what is going on. Now, while I'm still on the issue of finance, we have a sanctions regime that is working, that has categories, layers of gravity, like when you are still in arrears, maybe delayed by 6 months, then by 12 months, then by more, your sanctions keep increasing. And that sanction regime on countries is really helping, but some countries just can't afford not to be sanctioned because of circumstances, unfortunately. Then, in the interest of time, let me rush to the questions around accountability, because that is another theme that you rightly so raised. On this theme of accountability, let me start by saying that indeed, as African Union, in its organs, including the policy organs like the Executive Council and the Assembly, and then other organs like the PRC and the Parliament and others, we are all in this issue of really making the African Union project work. And in addition to really that Pan-Africanist spirit, which we should continue emphasize across, including even across the staff of the union, and also the ambassadors, permanent representatives here in Addis, and everywhere. That's really something that we need to continue working on. But there is also a reality we need to know. This your commission, in matters of deciding on this budget and budget allocations and appropriations, its powers are limited. We've had over the couple of years to engage with PAP to try and advocate for it. Luckily, we managed to get a supplementary budget, but it's always a tug of war. And the challenges are systemic. They are systemic in a way that, to start with, of course, member states are at the core of everything, because they are the ones who would decide what to do, how much to allocate, and which instruments to ratify, what decisions of reform to implement, and it always comes back to our member states, who are, in other words, you as members of parliament, being part of that community called member states. So within each member state, again, PAP is very, very important to help really this whole system work. And accountability also checked within the AU and also within the country on how member states' responsibilities also can be working towards really making this